Hi, classic rock fans. I am reporting back after seeing my first concert since the COVID-19 pandemic. I actually recorded my initial reaction last night directly after the show, but because I'm a moron, I did not turn on enough internal lights in my car, so the video of that is totally useless. Day late and a dollar short, as usual. But I still wanted to talk about it since it was the first concert I saw since the coronavirus pandemic started throwing everything out of whack for the music industry. The show I was at was part of Waterfest in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. Waterfest is a weekly summer concert series that happens every Thursday of the summer at the Leach Amphitheater in Oshkosh. I attended a few shows at Waterfest in past years. I was there twice in 2013, once to see Survivor, once to see the Tubes. And then I was there 2 years ago to see Fran Cosmo, formerly of the band Boston. Yesterday, I was up there to see Jim Peterik and the Ides of March and their Cornerstones of Rock package tour. Now, usually if you see Jim Peterik and the Ides of March, they'll do music from Jim's previous bands and songwriting partnerships. Jim was in Survivor, so they'll do Survivor songs. He wrote a bunch of songs for 38 Special and Sammy Hagar, so they'll do those songs too. But that was not the case last night. Last night was meant to be a presentation of a collection of a number of bands that had some mid-level hits from the 1960s. So this was a big-time throwback band, and I will say both the individuals on stage and also in the audience were among the oldest of all the concerts I've ever attended. I've been to a lot of classic rock concerts, so I'm quite used to being among the youngest people in the audience, but this one, that was definitely the case. I'm 32 now, and I'm guessing that 99% of the people there were at least twice my age. Now that's not a knock at all. It's not a complaint, and I'm not talking shit about it. Just trying to sort of set the stage of what this show was like, because the Cornerstones of Rock makes sense as a name because it's celebrating the music of early rock and roll. You know, bands that showed up right after the Beatles. And on this package deal, along with the Ides of March, were the New Colony Six, Shadows of Night, the Buckinghams, and the Cryan Shames. I had heard of the Buckinghams before tonight, but I had not heard of any of the others. And I did not recognize any of the other songs from those bands. I know a couple of Ides of March songs, but not these other groups. So it was a good experience for me because I got to learn some new to me music. And I like rock history, so getting an introduction to some of these bands and getting a chance to see them while they're still out on the road was a cool opportunity. I know of another package tour like this. It's called the Happy Together Tour. That's been going on for like the past decade. And I believe that the Buckinghams have been a part of that tour in the past as well. So I think this is Jim's effort to sort of do that same thing where he's bringing together his contemporaries from the mid-60s, some of the groups that he looked up to and inspired him in his early days in rock and roll. If you're not familiar with Jim Peterik, he's a really interesting figure in classic rock. You know, the Ides of March formed in the 60s. And they had a hit called Vehicle, which if I played a clip of it, you would definitely know it. And then they split up a couple of years later, and then he went on to form Survivor and, you know, had a big career from that. But after he left Survivor, he reunited with the Ides of March, and he's been with the Ides ever since. So I've seen the Ides of March once before. I saw them in 2019. It was actually one of the last shows I saw before the coronavirus pandemic, so I gotta say it feels a little bit like bookends to see them again last night. And I saw a Jim Peterik solo appearance at a record store in Hobart, Indiana about 2.5 years ago. And both experiences were great. Last night was a lot of fun too. I would absolutely recommend seeing this tour if you are a fan of early rock and roll, particularly early pop rock. If you like early Beach Boys, or the Dave Clark Five, or early Beatles, this is the kind of show that I think you would enjoy yourself at. And if that is the case, I would recommend that you go out and see them on this tour. Because, again, and I'm not saying this to be mean or cruel, but everybody on stage is past the age of retirement, and especially with, how the pandemic has unfortunately taken so many iconic people from us already, there's no guarantee that anybody is going to be able to come back around again and again and again year after year. So, really, if this tour comes to your town and you like that era of rock and roll, I think you should see it. But then again, there's the whole conversation of, is it even safe to go out and see a concert? Well, that depends on your comfort level and whether or not you're vaccinated. I found it interesting that this week, Wisconsinites got the news that both Summerfest in Milwaukee and also the Pabst Theater Group in Milwaukee would not allow fans to attend any shows unless they can provide proof of vaccination or a negative COVID test in the last 72 hours. That's their way of ensuring the safest possible show for everyone who's going to attend. There were no such restrictions at Waterfest in Oshkosh. Now, Oshkosh is a much more conservative area than Milwaukee, but given the age of most of the fans from last night's show, I gotta say I was a little surprised that there weren't any precautions or safety measures taken, given that age group is the most at risk for COVID-19. It wasn't a particularly packed show, so I personally didn't really feel at risk at all. I feel that it was, as concerts go, a fairly low-risk situation as a whole. That said, again, virtually everyone went maskless. And if you're vaccinated and it's an outside venue, yeah, that's probably fine. At least for me, that's my comfort level. But I will be interested to see if Waterfest revisits their vaccine, proof of vaccination or mask policy in the future. All that said, I really like Waterfest. I've been there a couple of times in the past. I think it's sort of a hidden gem of Wisconsin live music. If you live in Wisconsin and you don't really like the big, gigantic crowds of, say, Summerfest or Wisconsin State Fair, I think Waterfest is, a good thing to check out. But for Wisconsin classic rock fans, I think it's a lineup you have to check every year, because every year they get some great classic rock artists. So that's really all I have to say about that. I'm just relieved that my live music slump has been finally busted. I hadn't seen a show since January 2020, which was when I was out in Las Vegas to see David Lee Roth. This was sort of a soft return to live music because it wasn't a real big splashy name or a gigantic crazy crowd, but it was a fun and comfortable environment. I think Waterfest does a really good job of bringing together cool, unique bands. I've been a fan of Jim Peterik for a couple of years now, and ever since I heard of this Cornerstones of Rock tour, I wanted to check that out, so I'm glad I got that opportunity. And I might be headed up to Waterfest again to see Tommy DiCarlo from Boston. So we'll see what happens there. Otherwise, I have tickets for other shows this year that if, God willing, they don't get canceled, I will be going to and reporting on. So please be sure to stay tuned for that. I'll wrap it up just by saying thank you for tuning in. Please be sure to hit subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube, and check us out on Facebook and Twitter. And of course, I have a podcast about classic rock that I would invite you to check out. A lot of good stuff there. So I hope you also get a chance to get out and see live classic rock music again. And hopefully going forward, we can somehow thread the needle of having great fun at classic rock concerts while also by staying safe and being responsible and making good choices. So again, thanks for tuning in. Check out the links below and keep rocking.